You're listening to Expertly Said, a podcast on the art and impact of communication. I'm Kristen Sweeney, founder and CEO of Every Little Word. My guest today is Casey Cheshire. Casey's a seasoned marketer with over 2 decades of experience and is the author of Marketing Automation Unleashed. As the founder and CEO of Ringmaster Conversational Marketing, a B2B podcasting agency, he helps businesses build authentic connections. He also hosts 2 podcasts, The Hardcore Marketing Show and the Connect to Market Pod. Casey has been gracious enough to have me on a couple of his shows long before I was the podcast celebrity I am today. So I'm very happy to be able to interview him today on Expertly Said. Casey, welcome to the show.
Kristen, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me on your show. I'm so excited. I've been listening to it, and the conversations are amazing. The guests are incredible. So I'm not sure how I slipped in line here, but I'm happy to be here.
Thank you very much. I'm sweating it a little because I feel like I'm in front of the OG of podcast hosting.
Oh yeah, I'm already taking director notes on you. It's already.
Well, I'm already noticing I don't have the windscreen for my microphone, so that's going to be my first purchase right after the recording. But so, yeah, we are going to have a lot to talk about today. Might get a little bit meta podcast episode on podcasting. But I know you've got a ton to share. Knowing a little bit about your background, can you tell us about that journey? You've been in marketing for quite a long time, but how did you come to be where you are today with Ringmaster?
You know, it's crazy, and I've heard a lot of stories on some of the other episodes where we go way back in a time machine. And my experience, like how communication came to be at the forefront for me, started in 5th grade with a 5th grade play. This is back in the day. I don't know if we do this anymore, but it's like the entire grade had to be in the play. And so you were either going to be in the chorus, and it was a musical. So it was like a 5th grade musical, and you could try out for some parts. And of course, my friends and I, we all tried out for the cool kid part. I did not get that part. My friend Ricky did. And I got cast as the nerd. But apparently it was the star of the show. It had more lines than every other kid. It was this nerd. And the premise of the show was that these kids had waited to the last minute to do their homework on communication throughout the ages. And they're like, oh no, a report's due tomorrow. Hey, there's the nerd. Can you help us? And I had this supercomputer that talked. And one of the students did her voice over the microphone, and this computer was like AI, and the students could be like, hey, tell me about communication in this age, and this age, and this age. And I would like type on the computer. I was basically like the Urkel of the school play. I did not want to be, but you know what? I fell into that role. I ad-libbed like crazy. I really owned it. And then wouldn't you know, I ended up going to school for computer science and communications, right? I became that part, or maybe that part was already there. And so throughout my career, there's always been an aspect of the technical, the deep dive, tinkering with technology, but also communicating with humans. I never just wanted to do the computer side where it was like, okay, program processor gates open and close. I'm like, where are the humans at? So for me, there's always been an element of like, how can we use technology to bring us closer together?
I love that. And as well as you and I know, we have a deeply shared love of musicals. So I love that connection there, and performing as one of the earliest ways that you kind of locked into that passion for communication. It's really interesting where you talk about kind of marrying those two fields. There's something that's kind of coming to mind for me, which is the way you describe them is tech sort of in service of communication. In some ways, I'm feeling like the discourse around that has been a little bit flipped, where it's how can we take these communicators, these content creators, these creative people, and sort of jam them into these more technological roles, kind of impose technology on them, tell them that what they're doing and the way they're doing it isn't good enough right now and that they need more. Which I think nobody likes being told what to do, right? So as a member of that community, I think there's, even though, we're going to talk a little bit about AI, well, probably a lot about AI later on, this idea that like being told you're not good enough without the technology. And I just really like the way that you kind of pair those two things as in equal partnership.
Equal partnership, but in service of the humans involved. I get what you're saying. And I sort of fell into this too as the tech evolved, marketing evolved, communication evolved, and something new would happen, and then we're like going crazy with websites, going crazy with email, automation. And I spent decades teaching people how to automate, and I would call it carrot scale, how to pretend to send someone one email, but really went to like 10,000 people. And there was a benefit to that, but also I found, even for myself personally, it kind of stripped out the human on the other end because you started emailing email addresses and not people. And I know for me, and I mean, I was guilty, so it's not like I'm criticizing anyone else. I was the one that was teaching people to do this. And so we spent, a decade plus teaching thousands of companies how to basically email people, and not spam, nurturing was the word, but it wasn't really one-to-one, but it looked like it was. But the trap was that then we lost touch and we stopped actually doing the one-to-one. So my career has sort of like gone, mass communication, like let's communicate to everyone. And then over time, I've realized the value of bringing it back in to communicate to one person first before trying to scale. And we were doing it the opposite. We're like, let's communicate to everyone. And then eventually sales can communicate to one person. And so now I've sort of flipped the model, saying like, I want to start by communicating like this with one person. And then from the lessons learned here, communicate with more and then many.
Yeah, it's such an interesting thing, and I want to get into that more. The thing that comes up for me, and I'm always trying to find, is that balance, right? Of, as a small business owner myself, like I could get lost in the weeds. I could take days to personalize one outreach message to somebody, and that's not a sustainable practice. And at the same time, kind of mass blasting, right, can definitely, it's getting lost right now, I think, more so than ever. And so trying to find that balance of where can you be smart about having templates and frameworks, but still showing the intention and the care in that kind of messaging that you send out.
I feel like this is the perfect show to invoke the medium is the message, and the idea that maybe it's not email, right? And so I spent all this time and all this tech because the tech was email, because I had a hammer, everything was a nail. And what I've grown to understand is things like podcasting, things like community and roundtables and even partnerships, these other mediums can be a better way to start the communication. But then to your point, take that and then repurpose the crap out of it in 90 different other mediums. Yeah. But at least the core of it, in the original of it, I know you do this all the time with your company. You start with some great content, some great communication, and then it's much easier to spread it.
Yeah, 100%. And I think too, it, as you said, keeps you connected to the person, because the other thing that can happen, as you said, you're emailing an email address now instead of communicating with the human being. Similarly, on the back end of the way that things are measured, right? We're measuring signals and assuming those signals mean certain things. We're attaching a lot of meaning to them, but it's easy to get too attached to the signal itself versus, is that driving the right action? Am I influencing how they think, how they feel, how they behave? Like, what about the actual person giving that signal? And that is what we're actually trying to impact.
And we think it's signal, and then to everyone else it's noise, and then everyone thinks their own signal, like, oh, my dog is the cutest. No, you have an ugly dog, and everyone else does too. And it's so noisy at the dog park, we can't get a word in edgewise, right? So like, it's getting with AI, it's getting noisier and noisier. And one of my favorite, I had a boss that told me his favorite radio station, and so now for the kids, I have to translate my favorite Spotify playlist is WIIFM, which is what's in it for me, right? And this boss told me, like, what are you sending? And he's like, if you can't, like, pretend you're the person, if you don't get value out of that, then that's not serving a purpose, And my biggest pet peeve, wait, maybe we'll say that for later. We'll save that to the end. But yes, I did figure out something that must die, so I will save that.
Excellent. So you've had a podcast, even while you were running your previous company, the email marketing company. Yeah. You had a podcast. So tell us where that idea came from, why you got that started, and kind of what it was doing for you before you made the full kind of pivot in this direction.
Yeah, it was a consulting agency doing a lot of work with marketing automation and Salesforce. And very quickly we realized anytime we taught something to a prospect, to a customer, we would win a deal. if we just talked at them or we just stared them in the face, nothing happened. But if we taught them something new about that technology or about marketing strategy in general, they would go, ooh, that's interesting. And then now we've set the groundwork for working together. So thought leadership needed to happen. This was clear, but I would spend, some time writing a post to go on LinkedIn. And sometimes 100 people would see it, and sometimes 1,000 people would see it, and you never knew the difference. Maybe it was because there was a better image in the headline, right? And so it got very frustrating to invest so much time in this sort of old school method of just writing, almost like waterfall method, just write. And I can write really well, but it takes time, so you're going back, you're like really perfecting it, only realize maybe no one's seeing it. And so we had this moment toward the end of one particular year. I'd been listening to podcasts for a long time, mostly for entertainment. And I thought, maybe I'll do a podcast. And there was no company like my company now, Ringmaster. There's no company like Ringmaster to advise me as a company on how to launch a podcast. So I just winged it. And there are a lot of like audio nerds telling you like what mic to get and this and that, but not like how to make this a business thing. And so we just sort of went for it and tried it out. And my first couple episodes were really hokey, and even the first one doesn't even have video because at the time we had a tool that wouldn't record. It was just crazy lessons learned. But we kept doing it, and very quickly I realized this is awesome. And I did it for content, right? That was the initial purpose. Do this for content. I had no other aspirations in any other shape or form. I just want thought leadership content. Maybe it's easier to just talk it than to write it. Mm-hmm. And it was. And I got content out the ears. And then that book that I ended up writing based on a lot of these conversations with experts that knew even more than me in different parts of marketing automation. Marketing Automation Unleashed on Amazon. Go get it. It's everything I knew. So it was like a capstone project. But like that book came out of podcasting for a year. And we sort of translated that into a book that people could take with them, and use those strategies. So very quickly content was solved. But what I wasn't ready for is all the other things that happened. Connections started happening. And again, I was the biggest purveyor of mass communication disguised as genuine, what's in it for me type emails. And then I started having these actual human conversations with people. Some people who I had no business talking to. Adele Ravella, I think she was on episode 3, wrote Buyer Persona, brilliant woman and author. And she said yes for like episode 3. And I'm like, why? Maybe she was feeling nice that day. I don't know. But I had these brilliant people that would just teach me for an hour. And I realized this is how I want to learn. This is also how I'd love to connect with people. And then I started having amazing things happen where I remember speaking to a CMO of a large company. And at the end of this great podcast interview, we were just chit-chatting offline. And she mentioned her company was migrating to the software that my company specialized in. And she didn't realize that that's all we did. And I didn't realize she was migrating. But we thought, well, shoot, we just spent an hour plus together across a prep and a pod. And we really kind of gelled. So we thought, let's get our teams together and scope this thing out. It turned into a giant deal. And so that kind of woke me up a little bit to say, wait a minute, this is content, but this connection actually can turn into revenue, like direct revenue and then the brand growth. And so this was like, whoa, there's a lot more to it. And what I've discovered is now podcasts are like a Swiss Army knife. There's a lot that can happen just from sitting down with someone, connecting and having a conversation.
I love that. And I'd love to hear more about, I think when you're talking about an investment in something, investment of time, investment of dollars, just kind of mental capacity, there's this question that comes around on ROI, and it's kind of tossed out there really flippantly as though everything can be connected back to, I spoke this many words and I got X dollars out the back of it, right? But I like hearing how you're talking about all the various outcomes, some of which may be more tangibly connected to deals, some of which are more building network, creating content. So you're, kind of dual purpose, triple purpose in here. How do you think about especially the kind of, I would say the more specifically ROI piece of this, because I imagine the folks that go in with too much of a mind of like, this is basically a sales conversation disguised as a podcast interview, I imagine they don't see the same success.
Yeah. I mean, it's that classic thing of before you start anything, what are you trying to get out of this? What's your goal? And then making decisions toward that direction. Because a podcast, I always joke with the team that you could make a podcast where you just literally sit there and eat chips, on a great microphone, and people might listen. And that's art, right? But what's the goal? Like, was your goal just to eat chips? If so, you accomplish your goal.
Yeah.
Right? So a lot of people will start a podcast for fun, or they'll start it because they want to maybe get customers. They've heard a story or conversation, or they just want their brand to be bigger. And so we've seen success in the demand side and the brand side, and the fun side, and the community, and all these other things. But it really, how you decide what your goal is really impacts some of the decisions you're going to make around what you call the thing, what kind of content you have, what kind of guests you have on there. So it really is important for the ROI to start out understanding what success looks like. And then it's quite possible. It's very straightforward. I did a whole webinar actually on ROI of podcasts, because there's a lot. And when you really think about it, there's yes, your guest. And I actually just did a podcast the other day, and then I ended up signing up with that accountant.
Nice.
So he got me, but I connected with him, and I needed an accountant, so there we went. So there's the direct guest ROI, but then there's also, not everyone's in market at the time. And so this kind of tricks people a little bit. Is everyone in market right now anyways? No. I mean, I've heard 17, 18%. I've heard 7%.
I've heard 5.
Prospects. You've heard 5, right? So if you do a bunch of podcasts with people, now maybe there's indicators you can trigger off of, but not everyone you're chatting with is ready to buy you right now, but some are. So you capture those, and sometimes that just it pays for the whole thing, right? Just having a couple guests connect like that can pay for the whole thing. But then there's more, because everyone else who's not in market right now will be at some point, and they know you really well because you've spent some serious time just staring at each other's eyes, having a conversation, learning from each other. And so when the time comes, it's like, hey, let's work together. So there's that. But there's also those, I find that guests become great referral sources. So word of mouth and friendly referrals that are just happy to share that they know someone that does what you do, goes through the roof in a strong, measurable way. And then there's just the brand lift of putting yourself on the map. Now suddenly all these people, decision makers, it's great for opening doors. All these decision makers now know who you are and what you do, and you skipped all of the games. I find there's a lot of games that modern marketing plays. I played a lot with the emails, but there's other ones like, ooh, here, notice me, right? Let me distract you from your job. Notice me. Let me take your time. Let me trick you to be on a call with sales. Let me spend lots of money at a trade show giving you fleece blankets with my logo on it. So hopefully one day you'll mention to your boss's boss when they're asking about it, this other thing, right? It's just so, It's almost like an industrial complex of marketing software.
It's a long, convoluted road,
Or a long con even, right? So you skip all that and you have a podcast conversation with the decision maker and you honor them. It's not about you, it's about them. And you learn from them, learn more about what makes them tick, what their goals are for themselves and their company, and also what their challenges are. And maybe you can help them. So this whole thing flips the script. It makes it more about a give, not a take.
Yeah, I find too, in terms of one of the things you said, talking about attention and kind of grabbing attention. So we've recently updated some of our messaging, and one of the things we're talking about is content and communications that earn attention and build trust. And that word earn is very intentional, right? Not grab attention, not capture attention, not hold hostage your attention, not distract you so that you kind of feel worse afterward, but something that when you're done with it feels like that deserved it. I'm taking something away. There was value there.
Yeah.
The other thing is, I couldn't agree more on podcasting, as I'm not a small talk person. It's my biggest challenge in business development is just the walk up with a glass of wine in my hand to be like, hey, stranger,
all the red talks, what are you talking about, right? Yeah.
I love people like yourself because you're the easiest people to talk to in those situations. And then I can, kind of go along for the ride. But here we get to just dig in right away. And I think
Yeah.
there is that sort of acceleration of trust because you've shared some personal stuff and you've just really gotten to engage and go back and forth with each other on ideas. So on that, I think we've talked a lot about the value of podcasting, kind of how you came to podcasting. I want to know a little bit about the execution piece of this. What makes a great guest and what makes a great host? What are the components that make that show not only good conversation for those two people having it, but for someone else who might be listening?
Yeah, I'd start with a great host. So it's not what people think, right? So when you're hosting, the best hosts ask really good questions and then they shut up, right? And I've heard you're fantastic. You're absolutely a fantastic
thank you.
host.
Get my feedback session later.
Yes, yeah. So I've had some hosts that just you're not sure who the guest is because the host talks so much, and you're like, what is good? It's weird, and everyone knows it's weird. It's it's like the weirdo at the networking event. Like, what is going on? So the best hosts, they don't have to be people. They don't have to enjoy large crowds of people. It's just one person, and it's okay if it tires you out. It's okay if it lights you up. Either way, you're just there to learn from the other person. And so that's why it's also fun to be a guest on a show, because then you get to talk. I usually am just listening and asking great questions and shutting up. It's great that I get to talk now, but I also feel weird about it because I'm so used to just being quiet and asking questions.
Same, right? Because when we interview our clients, I'm in the host role effectively,
host
right?
role.
I'm trying to get them going, ask good questions, follow-ups, dig things out, but I'm mostly trying to get the information from them. I've seen a couple podcast clips of myself as a guest recently and been like, I talked for 2 minutes in a row, and have to kind of remind myself like that's okay, that I was in that different seat where
Right.
The point was for me to just go on a roll.
Just go, right?
Yeah, but I'm definitely more accustomed, at least, to being in the host seat.
Yeah, it's great, right? And so the host, it's actually it's in a way it can be easier to be a host because it's more about being curious. You don't have to be an expert. You just have to be curious and ask questions you want to know. And so one of my biggest rules for podcast hosting is never ask a question you don't want to know the answer to, because then you're not going to pay attention. The audience is going to understand that you don't care. What are you, just like a talking head at this point? Like, if you don't care to ask a question, don't ask it. Mm-hmm. Ask something else so that you stay curious and the audience will hear that. And don't even explain yourself. Just ask the question. So, yeah, a good host is just someone who is curious about the topic and takes it from there. I once had a podcast episode with a professor from Wharton, a marketing professor from Wharton, Peter Fader, brilliant guy. And this is back in the day when my pods were an hour and a half long. I call it a half Rogan length of time. And he talked to me for an hour and a half, one-on-one, and I asked dumb questions. He gave me smart answers. At the end, my brain was just like smoking, But it was fantastic. So that was just the curiosity side. And on the guest side, it goes back to what the goal is. Is the goal brand? Is the goal getting attention? Do you want to mix in, or is it demand? Do you want to get some leads from this? Do you want to get some business and referrals from this? Then you're thinking about who can be on it. Maybe the guest is an ideal future dream customer. Maybe it's an influencer in the industry. Maybe it's both.
Yeah. And
you kind of pay attention to the ratio of what you're looking for. But ideally, the guest is someone who can speak from a place of passion and expertise. They want to talk about what you're talking about, and they actually can say something coherent about what you want to talk about. And sometimes, the hard part for the host is figuring out what is that topic. And oftentimes when you get an answer that's like, I enjoy it, and nothing happens, it's because like they're out of their passion zone or their expertise zone. They either don't care to talk about that topic, or they don't know what to say about that topic. It's like asking me about P&L statements. I mean, I could talk about it. You probably shouldn't take it as financial advice. Yeah. I don't really want to talk about it, but I could, And so I might answer it, but then stop. But if you got me talking about podcasts, God, the guy won't shut up, right? So when you get your guest into that zone, then you can just sort of corral them instead of having to nudge them all the time.
Yeah, I agree. I think that is definitely one of the kind of built-in benefits of talking to folks who communicate for a living, is that they tend to have a lot to say and they know how to say it, and they kind of understand fundamentally like what's what's needed on the other side of that. So that's great. Last thing I wanted to ask about before we go into the big idea, having just gone through the process, we did it internally of putting a podcast together and out in the world. It was a big lift for our team, and we are a content team to begin with. And we even have a little bit of video production background, like bonus kind of built in with our producer. And it was still a really big lift. So, and I know that's why folks come and work with you, because operationally it's just too much. So can you talk about kind of the biggest challenges or friction points that maybe people who are not yet your clients or even your clients face in that process of really launching and keeping consistent?
Yeah, it's this nasty word called pod fading. And studies show that podcasts can go between 7 and 12 episodes and then they stop. So I don't know how many you've recorded yet, but I wish you well getting out of the danger zone. No, you're going to do just fine. But a lot of what happens, and actually, curious question, do you know how many podcasts exist in the world right now?
I don't.
Any guesses? Add 1 million to the end of it. How many million podcasts do you think?
83 million.
About 5 million, give or take.
That's it?
Yeah. But if I were to, ask how many do you think have been updated within the last 30 days, how many do you think?
Oh, gosh. Is it even 100,000?
Yeah, it's like 180,000.
Okay.
Yeah. But like a super subset, right? So a lot of people got the idea, this would be cool. NPR does it, Joe Rogan does it. Maybe I could do it. Yeah, you can. The problem is they're not thinking about the strategy. They're not thinking about what is my goal. And then there's a learning process. So there's a lot of things that happen. You found it with even the setup. Podcasting is a lot of work and wrangling guests to rescheduling. I don't even know if I rescheduled on you, but it is people get rescheduled and then they're not ready, or you got to even get guests on the show. So there's a lot of just lift that goes on there, and not even launching the show and coming up with a brand and all these other things. And so there's that. And then people find out that, especially if you're not intentionally going about your pod, you don't quite see the ROI. And individuals and companies, they go, wow, I'm spending a lot of time, especially if you're producing it yourself. You go, wow, I'm spending hours doing all these secret things that I never really realized were a part of it. All these researching the guest and all these questions. And in production is like a dark hole that you can go down, and you wake up and you're like, wow, I just spent how many hours in the editing lab? What just happened? So there's a lot of different time sinks in there. And then when you see 6 people watch your show, or you're not really sure if you've got any business from the podcast, it's not really, you weren't sure what the goals were, and also you're not quite hitting them. You're like, it feels right. I like the connection, but it's not translating into business results. That's where we come in, right? We've seen so many pods. We've helped launch so many pods. I've done things right. I've done things wrong. Hundreds of episodes. In a business case, in a B2B business world, understand what it takes to either have demand results or have brand results, or both, right? And so that's really where we come in. We help prevent pod fading from being a thing. So it wasn't just like a project you started a year ago and then stopped because it was that goofy person's idea and never really came to fruition. It can be a really powerful tool, but you got to watch out. The pod fade monster is out there.
I love that. Well, and it does. It takes a lot of commitment. And to be honest, I wouldn't recommend this for anyone who doesn't actually enjoy this part of it.
Yeah.
I think it would be really tough to put yourself out there, and these conversations can't be delegated, they can't be outsourced, they can't be done by your team. And I enjoy it. So, it's all working out for me. But
can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
What's the goal of your podcast?
I would say it's got that kind of layered goals. I'm definitely trying to expand and build relationships with communicators. We've got a lot. I'll be very Full disclosure, we've got a lot of folks from life sciences that we're reaching out to right now. That's an area we're actively trying to further expand into.
Yeah.
I've also, for a couple of reasons, figured out that relationship building and trust is really, really, really important in that sector. And some of the more kind of cold outreach type methods it's very difficult to make inroads there. And I am, to some extent, still trying to very much build my network in that space. So that's one thing.
That's great.
The other thing is I am marketing and sales inside this company, and put a lot of thought into like, where do I personally win? It's not really being clever in LinkedIn DMs. It's not being witty at a cocktail party. Like, it's just not. It's, let's talk about something really deep, really quick. Do you mind? Longer form conversation where I get a chance to kind of articulate to, this also demonstrates what it's like to work with me, because this is how I engage the experts and executives that we partner with for expert-led content. So, kind of all of the above. And I've already noticed the kind of brand lift, because now our guests are sharing content, and all of a sudden people who had no idea who I was are seeing my name, following, starting to just get some extra buzz and expansion for the brand.
And it's so genuine and authentic, right? You get all of those benefits and you're not tricking anyone. You're just having a conversation. That's brilliant. And I could see it definitely putting you on the map in the life sciences world, even more so, right, than you already are. Just like, oh, wow, look who they interviewed. This person, all the past guests so far, I've just been, wow. So I can imagine the industry is starting to take notice, but it's a gradual thing. It's like.
It is.
It's more like the gym than it is like a single, you can't study for a calc final overnight.
Well, and it's so much easier to give that advice when you're the marketer than to be the person doing the marketing. You're like, why isn't this happening faster? So just, I just view that as one more way in which I can relate to our clients.
100%.
So this has been awesome. I want to transition a little bit now into what we've talked about as the kind of one big idea. So we've covered a lot of stuff so far. Now I want to dive a little bit deeper, and we are going to kind of switch gears. I'm very impressed with us. We have not spent this whole conversation talking about AI yet, but we're going to now. So the one big idea we discussed together was human connection as the currency of the AI future. And that's your language. So I want to hear, what does that concept mean to you?
The marketing world was already noisy, and now it's getting inexorably, maybe that's a word I put in the quick start at the end, and it's getting noisier. Right? The world, all the marketing, all the spam, like I'm actually getting spam now. Gmail used to block it all. Now some of it's making its way through, and it's still terrible. So it's getting noisier and noisier, and it will get even more so as people decide, I'm just going to have AI do all my sales outreach and totally fail completely. And so when all this is happening and we're not sure what's real and what's a deep fake video, right? Nothing really seems real anymore. To be on a call like this, a video call, call it a podcast, call it a whatever. But this kind of one-to-one human connection, like that's what you take to the bank, right? And that's where trust comes from. In trust, the idea of like, you even shared like, hey, I'm going to ask you some of these things, and thank gosh you did, because like, otherwise I'm just going to stare at you like, let me think about that live on the show. There's nothing better as things get crazier than just to take a step back from the tech and say, let's use this tech, but to facilitate us chatting with each other 20 miles away, 100, 1,000 miles away, New Zealand, wherever it happens to be, we can connect. If we do it right, a real connection can form. Friendships, relationships, business, revenue, right? All that stuff. And you can still scale all the big things and do the carrot scale, but make it start with the one-to-one connection. So I'm just all about the different things. And it's not just podcasts. I know I like talking about podcasts, sure. But there's this concept, go to market is out there. Let's go to the market. We're going to the market. And arguably, we've always been going to the market, right? So this is not anything new. It's just a new acronym. And it's another way to sell marketing software is by saying, this is go-to-market software, or consulting. This is go-to-market consulting. Well, why don't we throw another acronym in there? How about we connect to the market instead, right? Let's stop going. It seems very transactional. I'm going to go to the market. What are you going to buy? Bananas, right? Or I'm going to connect with my buyer. I'm going to connect with Kristen on this call. Learn more about what she's doing, what she's excited about, what her challenges are. And maybe I can solve those, but maybe I know someone who can solve those. And it's not so much about me anymore. It's about the other person. And I think it's that whole idea of shifting from being me, to, again, be back to the other person and honor them on a pod, honor them in a community. Roundtables are fantastic. So connect to market. It's all about the idea of what are the one-to-one models that we can do? Thinking about mediums. What are the different one-to-one type things? And we start there. So do a podcast. Have a roundtable where you're interfacing with someone. I did a roundtable, and I met someone in some breakout sessions and whatnot, and I got on a sales call with them at one point, and they said, you know what? I like you, and I trust you. I thought, man, that makes me feel really good inside.
That's amazing.
And then I thought, wait a minute, how long have I known them? Well, I've been on 2 breakout sessions in the roundtable with them, and that's it. And now we're talking today. And I listened.
Yeah.
And that's it. And they're like, I like you and I trust you. So it doesn't take much about making it about the other person to really build something in a world that's starving of connection.
Yeah, so many thoughts in response to that. I love it. So first is when you talked about AI and noise, I have noticed in myself, you know, my husband likes to kind of just like at random moments just tell me about headlines that he's seen. and I find that
like good ones or like terrible ones?
Never,
like, I didn't
never
even know
good,
about
never
that.
good ones, never good ones. But so many times, you know, it'd be like, can you believe this? And I'll be like, is that real? And that's not something I used to say, right? But I'm like, is that real? Is that real? You know, so I'm already noticing, and I can't be the only one that's just got this increased level of skepticism about everything. And still, you know, until we're all in the metaverse being avatars talking to each other, like this isn't something that you can fake. And so I think that's really critical. When you were talking about go-to-market, that term, I don't get it either.
Is that a term you want to retire for good?
Maybe. If I felt like I understood it, but maybe the fact that I don't still understand it is not a me problem. But it does problem. This is what I think about. So back in May, my husband and I had the chance to do some traveling, and we went to Amsterdam, and we went outside of Amsterdam and we went to a cheese market, and it's still kind of set up as a historical cheese market. And so nice. The purveyors bring their wheels of cheese, and then the buyers, the shopkeepers all come in and they pound on the cheese and they listen to it, and they do this cool, like, they slap their hands back and forth while they're negotiating with each other, and then they shake once they have a deal. But when we think about go to market, that's the thing that comes to mind for me, is it is this personal experience of literally going and being with someone and engaging about something, not sending 20,000, you know, AI emails in a week. So that's really just interesting, because now I've got that image stuck in my head about go to market maybe fundamentally should be thought of as more of that connection that you were talking about.
Yeah, and maybe going to the market is what you did, and you saw the monger and cheesemonger, by the way, coolest title ever.
It is.
You saw the merchant, you saw the person buying it. They were connecting. You were there and observing. Like, how much deeper would you understand the cheese market if you were in that market? If you were the one doing the hand thing with them? And,
yeah,
you know,
I would get ripped off, I'm sure,
yeah.
but yes.
And speaking Norway, whatever, yeah.
Yeah.
And what did I speak in Amsterdam? I don't even know.
Dutch.
You were speaking Dutch while negotiating the price of a nice cheese.
It'd be cool. I just went to the store later, but
You're right. Yeah.
So I agree, and I'm curious, maybe expanding this out a little bit. Like, how do you feel about AI, just generally as a concept right now? Is it something you're using, but making sure it's in service of the human work? Something you don't want to use at all?
I think it's magic. I think AI is magic. I think we're not even sure why it works.
Yeah.
Other than like we're using calculus, which I didn't do well because I tried to study the night before. Calculus to study the difference between this point in data and this point in data, and somehow it's shorter, so we're going to serve this answer up, and somehow I get help with my middle school math homework for my daughter, right? So it's like,
right.
thank you, a magic AI. Well, you know what? I think it's a great tool. Now, I think it'll have far-reaching changes in the future, just like internet did, but like beyond that. So I think there's some like goofy craziness that some good friends who are like really close to it, who understand the calculus of the dots, who are saying the next 5 years are going to be like just bumper crop. It's going to be fantastic because we're going to have these tools, and we're going to have tools that make tools. And it's going to be fantastic for the people who embrace it and understand it and leverage it. After that, the next 5 years after that might be kind of weird, right? So hold on to your butts. But at least for the next 5 years, embrace it as a tool, leverage it. And I think if we can use the tool to make our lives easier, but also to get us back to the connection so that, use AI to repurpose that conversation you had, or do whatever you want to do. But start with the human side of it. I think it's fantastic. I love the talking mode, though. It's interesting. I love going for a little walk and speaking out loud my thoughts and having it challenge me and say something. So good for brainstorming. It's like a companion. I don't want to outsource all the critical thinking to it, right? Because in the end, it is an average. It's an average of the average. And if you want to be average, rely on it completely.
It'll get you there reliably, right? Yeah.
Right. It's kind of like just clone all of your competitors' websites. That'll be fine, right? No, it doesn't. It doesn't end up being fine, and we can see all the AI sales bots are not actually selling anything. So, you gotta. It's like a tool. We gotta be careful with it. It's like cleaning a knife in the sink. You gotta respect it, understand when it's good for veggies and bread and baguettes, but also let's pay attention when we're using it as a tool.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think one of the risks I see is that the easier things to sort of outsource in some cases are the things maybe we should be holding on to more tightly. So there's a commercial, and I believe it's two women. They're in Korea. They're in like a Sephora type store, and they're engaging with AI about what product they should buy because they have a challenge. And then they ask the question like, well, what do the locals use? And then it recommends a product, and this is supposed to be so great. And I just can't help but think like, that's like the worst kind of tourism, just now technology enabled. Like what, maybe ask a local, like maybe ask the person in the store and have that engagement, because you're in this, like, you're visiting this place, you're traveling, I assume, to engage with this new space and the culture and everything else. And instead you're just kind of getting this, as you said, this answer that's averages and missing out on that interaction. So that's one of the things I worry about, is that stuff's easier. Like, I would be first in line for an AI that like collected all of my clothing and did my laundry and dried and folded it for me, but some of the things that I think don't add the most for us are the harder things to actually delegate. So like you said, you got to treat it with respect and carefully about what you really want to give it and what might be worth keeping for yourself.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts on how you see AI impacting other forms of marketing or the marketing landscape kind of more broadly?
I think it's very tempting to have it write everything for us. And I don't think it necessarily, I am not a proponent. I am an enemy of the M dash.
Opponent?
Opponent of the M dash. Thank you, wordsmith. I thank you for your knowledge. The M dash. It's that classic thing where we go, let's write this with AI, or the classic. I have a friend, shall remain nameless, so Link doesn't track him down. But he has an app that does comments on LinkedIn that are all AI driven, and you can tell. You can tell, and it just sort of misses the mark. It's like eating empty calories.
Yeah.
It's like eating nothing but red 40 and sugar. High fructose corn syrup. It's like this high fructose corn syrup and red 40 and yellow 30. I know this sounds like Mountain Dew, but keep Mountain Dew the way it is, but everything else needs to get healthy. But yeah, it just feels so empty. And when you see that, you just got to be careful. There's certain things that you need to hold on to, and the people that do will earn that trust.
Yeah.
I think it's about trust,
Which brings it back to the one-to-one, the in-person interactions, and maybe the effort involved in that is kind of the point, because it's worth doing. And I do think there is some cosmic way in which effort in and effort out are related.
It's
effort in or output are related. Yeah.
It's a love language, right? It's work, it's effort. And many people, it's number one. But I think a lot of people just appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Are you ready to wrap up?
Okay, let's
lightning
go. I'm ready
round
to
segment. Okay. So this is called The Last Word. Every guest gets the same 5 questions. So go with your gut on these.
By the way, great time management on your podcast.
Oh, thank you. Thanks. I love this real-time feedback loop. It's awesome. I'm not sweating at all.
No, totally. I try not to look, but I can't help myself.
Question number 1, Casey. What's your favorite word to say out loud?
Preamble.
Oh, nice one.
Way
Do you use that often?
Yeah, I'm kind of using it as like a prefix, like just saying, hey, something that you need to hear before you hear the thing.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I probably use it too much, probably.
That makes me think of the Constitution.
I know, I know, right? Like
a lot of
I'm
gravitas
a constitutional lawyer in a past career.
There you go.
Not really.
Question 2. What's a word you know from reading, but you're afraid to say it out loud because you're not sure how to pronounce it?
Niche. Niche.
Oh,
niche?
I don't know.
Niche?
I don't know. I usually just kind of say both back to back. Just a niche.
Yeah. Apparently in the U.S. it's niche. Everywhere else in the world it's niche, like football, right? But I don't know. I always feel weird. Whichever one I pick, I always feel like I picked the wrong one.
I know what you mean. I prefer the sound of niche.
I do too.
But I would want to feel more confident saying it than I do.
And you don't want to sound like hoity though. Like, oh, have you figured out your marketing niche? Buffet. Oh, right? I don't know.
Question 3.
You gotta niche down, bro. Niche. Find your
harsh.
niche.
It's harsh. Yeah.
It's harsh. Like, we need a word in between.
Niche. Niche.
Niche. Oh, we can start a word. 6, 7. That's like all the kids. Oh, what's your niche? Like, niche. We should do that. We should start that.
Just you and me.
Finding your niche with Casey and Kristen. Make a podcast. We'll make a podcast called that.
I love it. All right, question 3. What's one phrase or saying you wish could be retired for good?
Yes, you get this on emails all the time. I've just updated my website. Come look at it. I would love to retire that.
Okay.
What's in it for me? Nothing. Stop emailing those announcements. Nobody cares about your cute little website you updated. Updated.
Nobody
Keep
cares.
it updated. Don't tell me about it.
Fair. What's a communication hill you're willing to die on? Question 4.
Everyone needs a podcast.
Everyone.
Any business that doesn't have a podcast by the end of 2026 will be out of business.
Wow, bold, hot take. You heard it here first. Love it. Awesome. And last but not least, what's the last thing you read, heard, or watched that's really stuck with you?
Dr. Henry Cloud has a book on trust. And we talk about it a lot, but study it for like 5 minutes. And it's eye-opening when he breaks down what is the recipe for trust. And this is stuff that we can use in real life. These are things we can use in business. It's universal. And we do trust wrong in certain ways based on how we grew up and what we've sort of learned. And so it's worth going back. He breaks it down into 5 particular things. And it's fascinating, and it's great for relations, great for business, great for everything. Really, it's the foundation of everything we do. So just to understand a little bit of what goes into making it happen goes a long way.
That's wonderful. One of my favorite parts about this is I get a lot of great recommendations.
I know, but don't you have too many books and you never have enough time to read them?
Of course I do. Yeah, definitely. All right, Casey, I'm really happy we got to do this. I'm really grateful to you for coming on. Before we say goodbye, if listeners want to learn more about you, what's the best place for them to find you?
Let's skip
and why
all
is
the
it
lines.
Your podcast?
Right. Yeah, skip all the lines. Email me, Casey@ringmaster.com. That's it. CASEY. Bump your crazy idea of a podcast off me. Goal or no goal, or hey, what microphone should I get? Right? Happy to just give you any kind of advice. You don't need to buy services from us. I'm happy to just answer. I think everyone really should have a podcast. I will die on that hill. So email me. And then also, we have a community called connecttomarket.com, and it's connecttomarket.com. So go there and just join other people who are just thinking about communication in a way where you can connect with the person on the other end, not just blast them with information.
Casey, thank you so much for joining us today.
Again, this has been fantastic. You have been a wonderful host, and I've seen some doozies. But I would say a shout out to everyone listening. If you've gotten this far with me talking too, I appreciate it. But go hit a rating on this podcast, right? If you're on Spotify, if you're on iTunes, go say hi to Kristen. Give her a little 5-star love. It really helps podcasters out when they get those ratings. Definitely say that your favorite episode was this one, obviously, but for sure, give it some ratings over there. And Kristen, thank you again.
Thank you. That's it for this episode of Expertly Said. We're produced by Every Little Word, a boutique content and communications agency. If you liked what you heard, you know what to do. Subscribe, share the episode with a colleague, or leave us a review. If you want to connect with me directly, please do. You can find me on LinkedIn. Just search Kristen Sweeney. Thanks for listening. Talk soon.